Well, it will increase our seating capacity to 90,000, over 90,000, which will put us in the top 10 in the nation. And of course, our fans have been very good about supporting us, so it doesn't make much difference if you have 110,000 seats if 20,000 of them are empty. So we want to make sure that we have a good chance of preserving our sellout streak. And so with the $7 million additional income and incremental increases that we're anticipating, we would probably eventually, within a few years, get to $100 million of income, which would put us closer to them, but not there. But, you know, this is somewhat predicated on population base. You think about Ohio and all the people they have, and Michigan and Pennsylvania, and so we do a tremendous job with 1.8 million people, and we're very, very appreciative of the fan support we have, because that's what keeps us afloat. This would be primarily premiums and sale of tickets. So for instance, if you purchase a skybox, you know, that costs so much money. If you have a club seat, you pay more than if you have just a regular reserve seat. And so the combination of all those things and the 5,000 additional seats will generate roughly $7 million in additional income. And when you figure that you're going to lay out $55 million, that's a pretty good return, and you can pay that off fairly quickly over a period of 8, 9, 10 years.
How concerned are you with this economy, you know, getting all this stuff done? I mean,
well, the reason we're having this press conference is as you know, the state is suffering a shortfall. And I could see people saying, well, you know, with the state budget and the university experiencing difficult times, how can you do this? And the reason we're doing it is we think as we move into the Big Ten, we need to be competitive. Secondly, we have generated a certain amount of reserve that most athletic departments don't have, which we will tap into. So we're going to be able to pay for at least half of all of these projects with our own money that we have saved. And we're glad to be able to do that and still maintain some reserve. And then I think Nebraska, even though it's been affected, has not been hit as hard as some other places. And so we feel this is probably the best time to do it. Construction costs are lower right now, and even though it may not be politically palatable to some people, probably the best thing we can do at this point.
Will you see a change in ticket prices?
Well, right now we're not anticipating that. We haven't talked about it, but this is not a particularly good time to increase ticket prices. We would always like to increase the number of people who are donating something to the athletic department, and so if that can be realized, I think there are some people who have bought tickets a long time ago, and so they've never made any extra contribution. And those that are able to, we'd like to have them do that. And but we're not going to pressure anybody. We're not going to say if you don't do this, you're not going to get your seats. That's not in the cards.
What are tickets selling for now, Coach?
55 and 65. I think it's 55 for most of the non-conference and 65 for conference games.
And that's all seats?
Yeah, pretty much.
Just to make it clear, are there any tax-funded state dollars going into this project?
No, I think the press release states that a couple of places that absolutely no tax dollars. The athletic department, as you know, is totally self-funded. And one thing that we're looking at is we don't ever want to get to the point where we have to ask for state dollars. And we're one of just a handful of schools that don't take student fees or state money in some way. And we're pleased with that, but we certainly don't want to get in that position. And this would help us maintain our independence.
So what backs up the bonds? How will they be repaid?
What backs them up?
Yeah.
Well, primarily the revenues. In other words, there's a statistic called coverage, and it indicates your income as opposed to your debt. And so our coverage is very, very attractive. We think the bonds will be rated very high. They're going to be very high grade because this is a project that is not in any way that we can see shaky. And so we haven't done the bonding yet, but we will be moving forward in the next month or two on that.
When you talked about the $40.5 million in the reserve or the private donations, are those donations already in hand, and were they made specifically for stadium expansion?
Well, what we have right now is sufficient reserves, and so of that remaining 40 million, 40.5 million, what I would envision would be new contributions probably being about 15 million. And those would be tied to maybe skyboxes, possible naming rights of the research area, club seats, maybe sold in advance, those kinds of things. And then the remainder of roughly 25 million would come from our foundation reserves. And those are simply athletic department monies that we've deposited with the foundation that are in excess of our expenses. And that's been building up over a period of years, but we've maintained that account with the idea that some of these things are coming. Now, for instance, we've done a 10-year facilities assessment which shows $50 million of expenditures coming. You know, you have depreciation. Your stadium deteriorates a certain amount every year. We have to do sealing to make sure that we don't have water leakage, which degrades the cement. So this structure has to be preserved. So every year we're spending money on that. We're replacing our indoor track right now, parts of it, and we're going to have to do our outdoor track. And so as you look at the facilities we have, you can't just say, well, 10 years from now we're not going to have to spend some money on them. So
the $15 million in revenue bonds is above and beyond the $40 million, and that is going to be paid through ticket revenues, or is that going to be paid with the premium seats? I'm getting a little confused on what. Well,
what we're going to do is we're going to go to people who buy bonds, and we're going to sell them bonds, $15 million worth, and and we will have to pay interest. We'll have to pay debt service on that. And I think that debt service will probably amount to somewhere around $2.5 million on what, well, it's probably a little high for $15 million, but we will have to pay debt service, and our debt service right now is about $3 million a year, and that'll probably go up to closer to $5 to $6 million with all of the projects that we're talking about, not just the East Stadium, but everything. So if the regents approve everything, we're probably going to have debt service of about $6 million, which I think if you examine athletic departments around the country would be very, very low compared to most.
And those are going to be revenue bonds that will be paid with?
Paid out, yes, over probably over 20 years, and yes,
I mean, will the ticket revenues be earmarked to pay that debt service? Is that what we're talking about? Is that what you're saying?
Well, we have a certain amount of money in the athletic department that comes in from all sources. Some of it comes from IMG, broadcast rights, Big 12, Big 10 revenues, ticket revenues, all those things. And we have to make sure there's enough coming in to pay all of our expenses, which includes debt service. Right now our budget's about $75 million a year.